Your soulmate may already be finding their way to you. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this fictional, faith-inspired story begins on a quiet morning when nothing appeared unusual, yet heaven was already working behind the scenes in ways no one could see. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. Across different places, two lives continued moving through ordinary routines, unaware that each day was quietly shaping them into wiser, kinder, and more faithful people. The greatest miracles often begin long before anyone recognizes them, growing silently through patience, prayer, and everyday acts of love. For many seasons, your soulmate had wondered why life seemed to move so slowly. They had experienced unanswered questions, unexpected delays, and moments when they questioned whether they were walking in the right direction. Yet every challenge gently transformed them. God used disappointment to teach compassion. He used waiting to build patience. He used uncertainty to strengthen faith. Looking back, your soulmate slowly realized that every season had been preparing them for a future built not on fear, but on trust. Meanwhile, your own fictional journey was unfolding with the same quiet purpose. You continued living with honesty when no one was watching. You chose kindness when bitterness would have been easier. You forgave those who had hurt you, encouraged people who needed hope, and remained faithful during ordinary days that often seemed unnoticed. You never imagined that these simple choices were shaping the kind of character that would one day inspire another heart. God was working within you just as faithfully as He was working within someone else. Don't skip because something beautiful is waiting for you. One peaceful afternoon, your soulmate visited a quiet walking trail after finishing the day's responsibilities. The gentle breeze moved through the trees, birds filled the air with song, and sunlight filtered through the branches above. Sitting on a wooden bench, they opened the journal that had accompanied them through every chapter of growth. They slowly wrote, "Lord, thank you for every lesson you have taught me. There were days when I believed I was standing still, but now I see that you were quietly moving my life in directions I could never have planned. Help me continue walking with faith, even when I cannot yet see the destination." Closing the journal, they smiled with a peace they had never known before. Listen carefully. This changes everything. At that very same time, your own fictional path led you to spend the afternoon helping at a neighborhood outreach event. You greeted strangers with kindness, shared encouraging words with families, and quietly offered your time without expecting recognition. An elderly volunteer watched you for a moment before saying softly, "You know, the people who change the world most often are the ones who simply keep showing up with love." Those words stayed with you for the rest of the day. As evening approached, both journeys continued separately, yet both hearts carried the same quiet gratitude. Neither person knew what tomorrow would bring. Neither expected dramatic signs or extraordinary revelations. Instead, they simply chose to remain faithful where God had placed them, trusting that every ordinary step still carried purpose. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. Later that evening, your soulmate met with a trusted mentor who had encouraged them through many seasons. After listening carefully, the mentor smiled and asked, "If God answered every prayer exactly when you first asked, do you think you would appreciate the blessings in the same way?" Your soulmate thought quietly before replying. "No," they admitted. If everything had happened sooner, I would have missed becoming the person I needed to become. God wasn't only preparing my future. He was preparing my heart. The mentor nodded with gentle understanding. Then never forget this, they said. Sometimes we believe we're searching for the right person, while all along God is teaching us how to recognize a heart shaped by humility, honesty, compassion, and faith. Those words remained with your soulmate long after the conversation ended. Returning home beneath a sky filled with stars, they opened the journal one final time and wrote. Perhaps someone else is also learning these same lessons tonight. Perhaps God is shaping another heart with the same patience He has shown me. Whether our paths meet soon or much later, I trust that His timing is wiser than my own. Until then, I will continue choosing kindness, faithfulness, gratitude, and love every single day. Meanwhile, you ended your own evening with a quiet prayer beside the window. Lord, thank you for walking with me through every season. Help me remain faithful in small things, generous with my time, honest in my words, and compassionate toward everyone I meet. Wherever you lead me, let my life reflect your love. As night settled peacefully over the town, two hearts rested beneath the same stars. They did not know each other's names. They did not know where tomorrow's road would lead. Yet both had learned the same beautiful truth: God's greatest work often begins long before we recognize it. He shapes hearts through ordinary days, prepares lives through quiet faithfulness, and teaches us that the greatest blessing is not simply arriving at the destination, but becoming the kind of person who reflects His love along the journey. My beloved child, don't skip, because the next chapter will reveal the unexpected opportunity that brings these two fictional journeys closer than ever before, reminding us that every act of kindness, every faithful prayer, and every ordinary day can become part of a much greater story written by God's loving hands. The paths were moving closer than either heart realized. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this fictional, faith-inspired story now enters a chapter where ordinary moments begin carrying extraordinary purpose. Stay until the very end, because what happened next changed everything. The days continued quietly, each one looking much like the last. The sun rose faithfully every morning, people hurried through familiar routines, and life appeared completely ordinary. Yet behind those everyday moments, God was continuing a work that neither heart could fully understand. Sometimes His greatest plans unfold so gently that we only recognize them after looking back. Your soulmate had developed a new habit. Before beginning each day, they spent a few quiet minutes in prayer, asking not for immediate answers, but for a heart that reflected God's love. Their prayers had changed over time. Instead of asking, "When will my future arrive?" they now prayed, "Lord, help me become more patient, more compassionate, more forgiving, and more faithful today than I was yesterday." That simple change transformed the way they lived. Meanwhile, your own fictional journey reflected the same quiet growth. You continued serving others without expecting praise. You encouraged those who felt forgotten, remained honest when shortcuts seemed easier, and chose kindness even when life became difficult. You believed that every small act of love mattered because God notices the things the world often overlooks. Don't skip, because something beautiful is waiting for you. One Saturday morning, your soulmate received an unexpected invitation from a close friend to attend a community workshop focused on encouraging young families and helping neighbors build stronger relationships. It wasn't advertised as anything extraordinary. It was simply an opportunity for people to gather, learn, and support one another. After a moment of prayer, your soulmate decided to attend. At almost the same time, you also accepted an invitation to volunteer at the very same event. You planned to help greet guests, organize materials, and welcome newcomers with warmth and encouragement. Neither of you realized that your separate decisions were quietly leading toward the same place. Listen carefully. This changes everything. The event hall gradually filled with people from many different walks of life. Some came searching for encouragement. Others came hoping to help. Laughter echoed through the room as conversations began naturally between strangers who soon discovered shared experiences and common hopes. Before the program started, the organizer invited everyone to participate in a simple activity. Turn to someone you haven't met, she said with a smile, and share one lesson God has taught you during the past year. Across the room, your soulmate paused thoughtfully before answering. I've learned that waiting isn't punishment. Sometimes waiting is God's classroom. The lessons I learned while waiting have become some of the greatest blessings of my life. Several people quietly nodded. Nearby, you shared your own reflection. I've learned that kindness is never wasted. Even when we don't see immediate results, every act of compassion plants seeds of hope that God can grow in His perfect time. Although the room was large and filled with conversations, those two messages reflected the same truth. Both hearts had been shaped by patience, humility, gratitude, and faith. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. During a break between sessions, unexpected rain began falling outside. Guests remained inside longer than planned, sharing coffee, stories, and encouragement while waiting for the weather to clear. Your soulmate found a quiet corner near the window and opened the familiar journal. Lord, they wrote, today reminded me that every person carries a story I cannot see. Thank you for teaching me not to judge by appearances, but to appreciate hearts shaped by faith and compassion. Continue preparing me for whatever tomorrow holds. At that same moment, you stood nearby helping an elderly couple find comfortable seats. After thanking you, the gentleman smiled warmly and said, "Never underestimate what a gentle spirit can do." The world remembers loud voices for a moment, but it remembers kind hearts for a lifetime. Those words stayed with you long after the conversation ended. As evening approached, everyone slowly prepared to leave. Neither you nor your soulmate fully understood how close your journeys had come once again. Yet there was no disappointment in the story. Instead, there was peace, because God had already accomplished something beautiful. He had continued shaping two hearts to value the same qualities: faith, honesty, humility, patience, forgiveness, and genuine love. Before going to sleep that evening, your soulmate whispered a final prayer. Lord, wherever you lead me next, let me walk with confidence, not because I know the future, but because I know you walk with me. Help me remain faithful in every ordinary day until every chapter unfolds according to your wisdom. Meanwhile, you also ended the day with gratitude. Father, thank you for every opportunity to serve today. Continue teaching me to reflect your kindness in every conversation, every decision, and every relationship. May my life always bring hope to those around me. As night covered the sky with countless stars, two hearts rested peacefully beneath the same heavens. Neither knew exactly what tomorrow would bring, but both had discovered a lasting truth: when lives are surrendered to God, no season is wasted. Every prayer, every lesson, every act of kindness, and every ordinary step becomes part of a greater story written with perfect wisdom and unfailing love. My beloved child, don't skip, because the next chapter will reveal the unforgettable moment when an unexpected conversation finally allows these two fictional journeys to meet in a way neither heart could have imagined, reminding us that God's quiet timing often creates the most meaningful beginnings. The day their paths finally crossed. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this fictional, faith-inspired story now reaches a chapter that both hearts had been unknowingly preparing for through many ordinary days. Stay until the very end, because what happened next changed everything. The morning began like countless others. Sunlight slowly filled the streets, neighbors greeted one another with warm smiles, and people hurried toward their daily responsibilities. Nothing about the day appeared extraordinary, yet God often works through moments that seem completely ordinary. Your soulmate woke with a peaceful heart. The fear that once filled their mornings had been replaced by quiet gratitude. Before leaving home, they opened the familiar journal and wrote only one sentence. Lord, wherever you lead me today, help me reflect your love through my words, my actions, and my attitude. After closing the journal, they smiled and stepped into the new day with confidence, knowing they did not need every answer to trust the one who was guiding their steps. Meanwhile, your own fictional journey began in much the same way. You spent a few quiet moments in prayer, thanking God for another opportunity to encourage others. You asked for wisdom to recognize people who might need kindness and for strength to remain faithful in every small responsibility. You had stopped worrying about what the future might hold because you had learned that today's faithfulness is one of the greatest gifts you can offer God. Don't skip, because something beautiful is waiting for you. Later that afternoon, the community center organized one final appreciation gathering for everyone who had volunteered during the previous months. Tables were decorated with simple flowers, children laughed while playing nearby, and local musicians quietly filled the room with gentle music. The atmosphere wasn't glamorous, but it was filled with warmth, gratitude, and genuine joy. As guests arrived, the organizer noticed there were not enough volunteers to welcome everyone at the entrance. Without hesitation, both you and your soulmate stepped forward to help. For the first time in this fictional story, you found yourselves working side by side. The introduction was simple. Hi, I'm glad you're here. So am I. There was no dramatic moment. No prediction. No voice from heaven announcing what the future would hold. Just two ordinary people meeting while serving others. Listen carefully. This changes everything. Throughout the afternoon, your conversations remained natural and relaxed. You discovered that both of you enjoyed helping people without expecting recognition. You spoke about lessons learned through difficult seasons, about the importance of forgiveness, and about how faith had given you hope during uncertain times. At one point, someone asked each volunteer to share what had inspired them to keep serving. Your soulmate answered first. I realize that every act of kindness reflects the love God has shown me. Whether anyone notices or not, I want my life to leave people with more hope than they had before we met. A few moments later, you shared your own answer. I've learned that even the smallest act of compassion can become part of someone's healing. We may never know how much a simple conversation or encouraging word means to another person. As everyone listened, quiet smiles appeared around the room. The organizer softly said, "Those are the kinds of values that build lasting friendships and strong communities. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything." After the event ended, many volunteers remained behind to clean the hall together. While arranging chairs and packing supplies, you and your soulmate continued talking. There was no pressure to impress one another. The conversation flowed easily because it was built on honesty, mutual respect, shared faith, and genuine interest in encouraging others. Before leaving, your soulmate paused for a moment and said, "I'm grateful we had the chance to meet today. Conversations like this remind me that there are still people who quietly choose kindness every day." You smiled warmly. I feel the same way. Sometimes the simplest conversations leave the deepest encouragement. Both of you exchanged a sincere smile before heading home. That evening, your soulmate opened the familiar journal one more time. Today reminded me that God often answers prayers in ways I never expect. I didn't experience a dramatic miracle. Instead, I experienced the quiet joy of meeting someone whose values reflected the same lessons God has been teaching me. Whatever comes next, I am thankful for today's reminder that faithful hearts still exist. Meanwhile, you ended your evening with a prayer of gratitude. Lord, thank you for every person you allowed me to encourage today. Thank you for every conversation that reminded me your goodness is reflected through ordinary people living faithfully. Continue helping me become someone who brings hope, peace, and kindness wherever you lead me. As darkness settled over the town, two hearts rested peacefully, thankful not because every question about the future had been answered, but because both had discovered something far greater. They had learned that meaningful relationships begin with friendship, respect, shared values, and a willingness to serve others with humble hearts. My beloved child, don't skip because the final chapter will reveal how this fictional, faith-inspired journey concludes with gratitude, hope, and the beautiful reminder that God's greatest blessings often begin with one ordinary conversation lived out through faith, patience, and love. The friendship that began with faith ***. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this fictional, faith-inspired story now reaches the chapter where a simple meeting slowly grows into a meaningful friendship. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. After the volunteer gathering, neither you nor your soulmate rushed to place expectations on the future. Instead, both of you carried home something far more valuable than excitement, a quiet sense of gratitude. You were thankful that God had allowed two people with similar values to cross paths through ordinary acts of service. The following week passed peacefully. Life returned to its familiar rhythm as work, family responsibilities, and daily routines filled each day. Yet every so often, both of you found yourselves remembering the encouraging conversation from the community center. It wasn't because of impressive words or dramatic moments. It was because genuine kindness has a way of remaining in the heart long after a conversation has ended. Your soulmate continued, beginning each morning with prayer. Lord, thank you for reminding me that faithful hearts still exist. Help me never take people for granted. Teach me to build every friendship with honesty, patience, humility, and compassion. Those words became part of their daily routine. Meanwhile, you also thanked God for the unexpected encouragement that had come through meeting someone who shared your desire to live faithfully. You prayed that every relationship in your life would reflect God's love, whether it lasted for a season or for many years. Don't skip because something beautiful is waiting for you. A few days later, another volunteer project was announced. This time the goal was to collect books, clothing, and food for families preparing for the new school year. Many familiar volunteers signed up once again. When you arrived, you noticed your soulmate already helping organize donated supplies. A warm smile was exchanged. "It's good to see you again," your soulmate said. "You too," you replied. Without planning it, both of you spent much of the day serving side by side. Boxes were unpacked, meals were prepared, and conversations flowed naturally between moments of work. Neither of you tried to impress the other. Instead, you simply encouraged one another while focusing on helping the people around you. Listen carefully. This changes everything. During a short break, you sat together beneath a large tree outside the community center. Your soulmate quietly said, "You know, I used to believe that meaningful relationships happened instantly. Now I think they're built one conversation at a time." You smiled. "I've learned something similar. Trust grows slowly. It grows through consistency, honesty, and showing up for people even on ordinary days." Your soulmate nodded thoughtfully. "I think that's one of God's greatest lessons. The strongest foundations are built patiently." For a few peaceful moments, neither of you spoke. Instead, you simply watched children laughing nearby while families enjoyed the afternoon together. There was no pressure to define anything about the future. There was only gratitude for the present moment. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. Before everyone returned to work, the event coordinator gathered the volunteers together. "I want each of you to remember something," she said. "The kindness you've shown today may become part of someone else's story for years to come. Never underestimate the value of one faithful act of service." Those words stayed with both of you long after the event ended. That evening, your soulmate opened the familiar journal once again. "Today reminded me that God's blessings often grow quietly. A friendship built on shared faith, kindness, and respect is a gift worth protecting. I don't need to rush ahead of God's timing. I only need to remain faithful where He has placed me today." Meanwhile, you ended your evening with a grateful prayer. "Lord, thank you for every opportunity to encourage others. Thank you for reminding me that meaningful friendships are built through patience, honesty, and humble service. Continue shaping my heart so that wherever I go, people experience your love through my words and actions." As another peaceful night settled across the town, two hearts rested with the same quiet confidence. They had discovered that the most meaningful beginnings rarely happen through extraordinary signs. Instead, they begin through simple conversations, consistent kindness, shared faith, and the willingness to trust God one faithful day at a time. My beloved child, don't skip because the final chapter will reveal how this fictional, faith-inspired journey ends with hope, gratitude, and the reminder that God's greatest blessings often begin with friendship, grow through faithful character, and flourish in His perfect timing. The beautiful journey God had been writing all along. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this is the final chapter of this fictional, faith-inspired story. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. Many weeks had passed since that first simple conversation at the community center. Life had not suddenly become perfect, nor had every question been answered overnight. Instead, something far more meaningful had happened. Two hearts had continued growing in faith, wisdom, and kindness, learning that the strongest relationships are built patiently through trust, shared values, and a desire to honor God in everyday life. As the seasons slowly changed, your friendship continued to grow naturally. You and your soulmate met again during volunteer projects, community gatherings, and quiet moments spent encouraging others. Every conversation revealed another shared value. You discovered a mutual love for serving people without expecting recognition. You learned that both of you believed forgiveness was stronger than resentment, humility was greater than pride, and faith was more valuable than fear. The connection wasn't built on excitement alone. It was built on consistency, respect, honesty, and genuine compassion. Don't skip because something beautiful is waiting for you. One peaceful evening, after another successful day of serving the community, everyone gathered outside to watch the sunset. The sky was painted with shades of gold, orange, and soft pink, reminding everyone that God often creates extraordinary beauty through quiet moments. As the group slowly began leaving, your soulmate remained for a few extra minutes. Looking toward the peaceful horizon, they smiled and quietly said, "You know, when I first began praying about the future, I asked God to change my circumstances. Looking back now, I realize He chose to change my heart first." You smiled gently. I've been learning the same lesson. Sometimes we think we're waiting for a blessing, when all along God is preparing us to recognize the blessings already around us. For a moment, neither of you spoke. The silence felt peaceful. There was no pressure. No need to rush. Only gratitude. Listen carefully. This changes everything. Before leaving, your soulmate reached into the familiar journal that had accompanied every chapter of this journey. Turning to the final blank page, they slowly wrote, "Lord, thank you for every unanswered prayer that became a lesson. Thank you for every delay that strengthened my patience. Thank you for every challenge that deepened my faith. Most of all, thank you for teaching me that the greatest miracle was never simply meeting another person. It was becoming someone who reflects your love through kindness, honesty, humility, and compassion. Whatever tomorrow brings, I know you have already been faithful through every yesterday." After writing those words, they gently closed the journal for the final time. Not because the story of life had ended, but because one beautiful season had reached its peaceful conclusion. Meanwhile, you also spent a few quiet moments in prayer beneath the evening sky. Father, thank you for every person you have placed in my life. Thank you for teaching me that love grows strongest when it is rooted in friendship, respect, patience, and faith. Continue helping me become someone who brings hope, encouragement, and peace wherever you lead me. Let my life always reflect your goodness. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. As both of you prepared to leave, the elderly mentor who had encouraged so many volunteers throughout the story smiled warmly and offered one final piece of wisdom. My dear friends, he said softly, people often spend their lives searching for extraordinary moments. But the greatest blessings usually begin in ordinary places, with honest conversations, faithful hearts, and simple acts of kindness repeated day after day. Never underestimate what God can do through a life that quietly chooses love. Those words remained with everyone present. Years later, people would not remember the decorations at the community events or the schedules that filled each day. They would remember the kindness that was shared, the encouragement that lifted weary hearts, the friendships that began through serving others, the faith that remained steady during uncertain seasons, and the quiet reminder that God often writes His most beautiful stories one ordinary day at a time. My beloved child, as this fictional, faith-inspired journey comes to its close, remember this timeless truth: the greatest gift is not knowing exactly what tomorrow holds. The greatest gift is becoming the kind of person who walks with faith, treats others with compassion, speaks with honesty, forgives generously, and trusts God through every season of life. When hearts are shaped by His love, every step has purpose, every delay carries a lesson, and every act of kindness becomes part of a story far greater than we can see. As the first light of a brand new morning appeared on the horizon, both hearts stepped forward with peaceful confidence. Not because the future was completely known, but because they had learned to trust the one who faithfully guides every step. Their story did not end with certainty about tomorrow. It ended with gratitude for today, hope for the future, and the quiet assurance that a life rooted in faith, kindness, and love will always be a life filled with purpose. And so this fictional journey closes with joy instead of fear, peace instead of worry, and hope instead of uncertainty. The waiting had become wisdom. The questions had become trust. The ordinary days had become unforgettable memories. And through every chapter, one truth remained unchanged. God had been faithfully writing a beautiful story all along.